Hello, YouTubers. Alaska Prepper here. Ladies and gentlemen, Alaska is still on fire. I thought I'd talk about that first really quick. I want to cover a whole bunch of different things that's going on around the world and how these things, even though a lot of them are not happening here in the United States, how they can affect us and affect pretty much everyone around the world, and what we can do in order to prepare for those things that may come here or that may come to a city near you if you don't live in the United States. So as you can see in the background over here, you can see that I don't want to say about almost done with the greenhouse. Have a little bit more to do. I'm going to finish that today. And after we have our little talk, I'll give you a quick tour, a quick 1-minute tour or something, so you can see what it's coming out like. It's coming out pretty good. It's not really that level and it's not really that square, but all I need is a strong structure that will withstand at least, I would say, about a foot or so of snow, because I'll be cleaning it off during the winter time. Whenever it snows, I'll come out here and clean it off. That's too easy. And that will hold in some heat and sunlight, let in sunlight when the snow starts to melt, so I can get my starters going there and hopefully add maybe an extra month or so to my growing season. So the first thing I want to talk about real quick is Alaska. It is still on fire. Since the last video that I put up, I think we were just over 2 million acres on fire during that video. And now I read that we're above 3 million. It is what it is. It's something that we deal with here in Alaska almost every year. Last year was a pretty good year, but it seems that this year is getting to be a pretty bad year as far as fires go. But we'll get through it like we always do. Anyone in Alaska that's watching this, the only thing that I would recommend is that if the authorities tell you, hey, listen, you have to plan to, move somewhere else for a while to make sure you're safe, is to follow those instructions. Because you know what, ladies and gentlemen, what it comes down to is that life is precious. And my life is here, right? My life is right all around here. But if something was happening that was dangerous enough to where I had to move my family out for a certain number of days or permanently, then I would have to, right? Because life is precious and things are only things and they can be replaced. So listen, ladies and gentlemen, especially to these professionals, they know what they're doing. The next thing I want to talk about is something that kind of made me think a little bit. And and I'm looking at some notes that I have here on my phone or some articles. And it says, frustration and anger and despair from Dutch farmers, which are protesting against the EU, really. It's really the EU, but it's really the UN through their policies that they want to pass worldwide, right? So all you have to do is go down the rabbit hole just a little bit and you know where all of this stuff starts. But these protesters, these farmers are like, what are you talking about? Why can we not farm? Because of nitrogen? They're trying to get the nitrogen in the soil down to like 95% lower in like the next 20 years or something like that. And it doesn't really matter if it's in the next 10 years, 20 years, 40 years or something like that. It's ridiculous. And this is what got me to thinking about that article. I wasn't going to report on it initially because a lot of other channels have reported on it. But think about this. Here we have a country, right? And we have a country that have farmers that are very efficient. These farmers are very efficient. They do a very good job. They're very, if you want to call them green, they're very green, right? As far as doing a very good job in an efficient manner in order to feed a lot of people. And here in the EU, we've had the food bank, the World Food Bank president say we're going into a worldwide food shortage. We've had CEOs of companies come out saying we're going into a food shortage. We've had our president here in the United States nationally say, yes, we're going to have a food shortage crisis. We've had senators and congressmen say, yes, we're going to have a food shortage crisis. We've had the World Bank president say, yes, we're going to go into a food shortage crisis and it's going to last at least 3 years, if not more. But what are they doing? They're taking the ability away from those that can actually produce food efficiently from producing food. Now, how much sense does that make to you if you're a rational thinking person, if you can think rationally? Doesn't make too much sense to us, does it? Another thing that I was looking at and that I didn't do a video on because there's so many going around are these protests in China. Because the banks are closing down and they're shutting all of their deposits and not allowing them to get anything. Now, there's a couple of lessons here that we can learn from what's going on here. Number one, always keep money outside of the system. Always keep funds outside of the system just in case something like this happens. You have a buffer. I read a couple of stories of this about people that had money in the bank, their life savings in those three banks that had been shut down. And they're like, I don't have anything to live on at all. I have plenty of money in there to take out and be able to live on it, but I have nothing to live on at all. And I don't have a job right now because of the health crisis, right? The lockdowns that's going on. So the first lesson is make sure that you keep some cash at home, enough to get you through a certain amount of time, and you can determine how long that would be. This is going to start happening here in the U.S. Look at what happened in Canada just a couple of days ago, where it was only for about 8 or 12 hours or something like that the internet shut down and people couldn't get money out of the ATMs. They couldn't do anything as far as banking. The banking system was down. The point of service system, the POS service systems were down, where shops and coffee shops, supermarkets, whatever, that they could accept a debit card or a credit card in order for you to make payment. That's something that we can learn from. Another thing is this, with what's going on in China. A lot of people that went there to protest, when they went there to protest, they were able to freely travel to their point of destination because the government did not know what they were going there for. But once they started protesting, a lot of their passes, you know how in China they have like a credit system, a social credit system that allows you to travel or not. And they also have a health crisis system or app on their phones where it says if you can freely travel or not. Well, a lot of those people, when they got there, their colors were green. They had green passes, meaning that they could freely travel. And then right after they got there and they joined the protest, guess what color their passes turned? It turned red, meaning that they couldn't freely travel, pretty much sticking them there, having them get stuck there because of their views. And the sad thing is that a couple of the stories that I read said that the people were saying, I couldn't believe that the government is doing this to us. They actually started beating us up just because we wanted our own money. They still don't understand, ladies and gentlemen. They live through a normalcy bias in China that they've been indoctrinated to abide by. They don't understand that it's not their money. Same thing here in the United States. The money that you have in the bank, it's not your money. Do you really think it's your money? All right? Really, do you really think that? Think about it and do a little bit of research. It's not your money. So make sure that you're prepared by having some cash outside of the banks, by having enough to get you through a tough time, just in case something like this happens, because eventually it will happen. Eventually people will be in an uproar when things like this happen. And that's just another set of problems, which leads me to talking about Sri Lanka. Sri Lanka has like maybe a day or two left of fuel. People are having to queue to wait in a line for hours, if not days, just to get a 5-gallon jerry can of fuel. Their government is pretty much failed. Their government officials, including their presidents, pretty much fled the country because they were being literally hunted down by a people who were once, during the good times, who were once a very peaceful people. But look at what happens to a peaceful people once the government takes everything away from them. And that's exactly what's happened in Sri Lanka. These people, they traded their labor for faith in the government and for a piece of paper that said, here, you can trade with this. This represents your labor. The government took advantage of that. They pretty much ripped the people off. I guarantee you that those officials that left the country, that fled the country, I guarantee you that they did not flee with bank accounts that were zeroed out. I guarantee you that they did not flee with nothing. They fled with everything, ladies and gentlemen, leaving everyone else who put their faith on them behind to face the consequences. And now, trust me, they're going to face those consequences because they don't have very many ways out. The only way out that I see that they have is if they get a bailout from a sovereign nation, and I don't see that happening. Why aren't we helping Sri Lanka, by the way? Have you thought about that? We're sending all these hundreds of billions of dollars all over the world to other countries, all right, to countries that maybe have been attacked by other countries. We're sending all of these billions and billions of dollars, sending all these weapons. Why haven't we helped, or anyone else helped Sri Lanka? Why haven't we gone over there and bought them some fuel and giving them some food and taking care of them? What's the difference between them and someone else? They're still human beings. Does it maybe make you wonder that maybe there's nothing to gain from these Western nations, from the United States in particular, helping them out? Because trust me, if Sri Lanka was full of natural resources, if they were full of rare earth metals and minerals and gold and silver and what is it, lithium now, right? That we need. If they were full of that stuff, if they had trillions of dollars worth of that stuff that still needed to be mined, I'm pretty much sure that we would be out there helping them out and making a deal with them. But now they're going to turn to the IMF, which in my opinion is even worse. In my opinion, it's even worse because the IMF has a bad history of doing the economic hitman even worse than the United States does, and even China. What they'll do is they'll go over there, they'll lend them some money on whatever new puppet government they install. And who's gonna be telling them what to do? Whoever loans them the money. Remember, the borrower is slave to the lender. So Sri Lanka's got a very long way to go, and the people, in my opinion, are going to suffer lots until they get back anywhere close to where they used to be. And this last one that I'm going to talk about is, we all know now that Russia has turned off the supply of natural gas going to Germany, I believe it is, Germany and some countries in Europe, because they have to do maintenance on the pipeline. All right, so this is just routine maintenance, and the line is supposed to be shut off for like 10 days or so. However, it looks like, and I'm not sure how this is going to play out, but it's going to be very interesting. I think Russia said something about that they need a part for one of their pipelines in order to continue to supply gas to Germany and to parts of Europe. And that if they don't get that part from Germany, who has that part and was supposedly repairing it for them, if they don't get that part back, they're not going to be able to continue the flow of gas. So now, in order for Germany to send them that part, I think it's part of a turbine or something like that. In order for them to send them that part, they have to break their own sanctions. So what are they going to do? What's Germany going to do? Are they going to break their own sanctions in order to send Russia that part that they need in order to continue to provide them with fuel? Right? Are they going to break the sanctions that they themselves set in place? How hypocritical would they look? In my opinion, I think they ought to break all the sanctions. I think they ought to say the heck with all these sanctions and do what it is that their people are going to need. Because if the people of Germany and Europe in general, right, that rely on natural gas from Russia, if they had their choice, and I believe they do, I believe that most of their population are in favor of saying the heck with the sanctions. We need our gas. It's something that we need in order to live the way that we're used to living now. Right? And most of the people want that. But what happened to democracy, ladies and gentlemen? Isn't democracy mob rules? So if most of the people want that, why is the government still saying, no, we're not doing this? Because the government is not for the people, ladies and gentlemen. It's not by the people, first of all. And it's not for the people. They're going to do what they want to do. And I think that their decisions are going to end up hurting the people really bad this winter. This winter, people are going to freeze in Europe. Trust me, they're going to freeze. They're already telling landlords that this coming winter, you're going to have to keep the temperature down. They're telling them you can't let the temperature go above this amount, or this Fahrenheit or Celsius, what they use there. You can't let it go above this amount come this winter. People are going to freeze there. And in addition to that, they're going to be paying out their noses for the little bit of heat that they do get. And in addition to that, their food prices are going to be double. And in addition to that, the cuts in natural gas that they're foregoing because of these sanctions is going to shut down a lot of their businesses. And guess which businesses are going to get shut down? The ones that the government deem necessary. So it's no longer about democracy. I think democracy is one of the worst forms of government. Why? Because of what I said previously, mob rules. The 51% can tell the other 49% how to live their lives. But it's not even about that anymore. It's now about government centralizing its decisions, making the decisions from the top down on the behalf of the people without the people having any choice on whether or not they can go ahead and make those decisions on their behalf. So it's going to be a very interesting winter. What do I say? You better get prepared for this winter here, even here in the United States. Get prepared, because what I see is that if we don't have per se a shortage, meaning that you can still get it, right? Be it fuel or food. If we don't have per se a shortage because you can still get it, it's going to be a heck of a lot more expensive than what it is right now. And it is already very expensive. And the last thing I'll cover is something that's a good segue off of what I just talked about the natural gas. Well, I'm sure that most of you have heard that there was another natural gas transfer site. I'm not sure if it was in Texas or not, but in the South, that had a fire or had an explosion sometime in the last few days. That, ladies and gentlemen, in my opinion, is going to be the death nail in the coffin of the European economy, because they're relying on us a lot for natural gas or liquefied natural gas. And we already had a plant that went down that used to take care of about 16% of our exports of liquid natural gas. And it's going down for the rest of this year, as they say, right? Which is the reason why our prices here have gone down, because now we don't have to export as much, so we have more here to sell. That's why prices went down for natural gas here in the U.S. But had they had their way and that plant did not catch on fire, then our gas prices here, our natural gas prices, would have still been at record highs, because they would have still been exporting. All right, so now we're not exporting that 16% that we used to. Now this other plant went down. So now that's going to cost natural gas prices for Europe and the countries that we export to go up even more. I hope that we've learned a lesson from all of this globalism stuff and know that it's not going to work. In my opinion, it's failed. It has failed. Too many people are awake and too many people are saying, no, why should I sacrifice my future, my children's future for your dream? Think about that. All right, so let me go ahead and show you really quick what I've done with the greenhouse so far. Now, remember, I am not a professional builder. All I want this greenhouse to do is to be able to stay standing, number one, hold some heat, number two, and hold a little bit of snow on the top up to a foot or so that I can take it out before the roof caves in the wintertime, right? So let's go take a quick tour. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have mosquitoes where you live, and they bother you, this is a must-have, right? Get yourself a thermosol like this. One of these butane canisters, this is the 1 pound ones. This will last me 2 seasons, and it works great. Now, this is what the greenhouse is looking like right here, ladies and gentlemen. So as you can see, I started off, and you can still see the ribs or the pipes. I started off with a frame from an old tent that I had where the canvas was just all tore up. So I took the canvas off of it, or the tarp, whatever you want to call it, and then I just reinforced it with some wood, as you can see. There's still some more reinforcement that I have to do, but I reinforced it with some wood. Like some more of the reinforcement that I have to do would be here in the corners. I'm going to go from here to here at a 45 so that it can get held nice and tight. I'm going to be using some brackets like between here and here. I'm going to be using some flat brackets so I can screw it together, right? I'm going to be doing that all around the corners. But you can see up here, I started putting my furring strips, I guess is what you call it, so that I can put my roof on. And it is by far, and let me start here real quick. This right here is like a door. So I'm not going to attach the plastic on this to the front. It's almost like a little garage door. If I let this down, let me go ahead and let it down. If I let it down like that, you can see that it covers the front. So then all I have to do is I took one of those pipes, and I know it doesn't look pretty, but I'm going to pretty it up later on after I'm done. I'll probably get some Gorilla Tape, the black one, and make sure it's nice and even all the way across. But I just did that to get it out of the way. But that's how it's going to be right here. And then what I will do is later on, I'll probably do this next year, because I'm not going to be using this greenhouse this year. But what I'll do is I'll put some Velcro around here. That way it can hold nice and tight. And whenever I want to open it, because it needs some air in there, I'll be able to open it. Now, the reason that I have these 2x6s right here, these ones right here, is because if you can see, this tent is not level, all right? You can see where that rib right there on the roof is not sticking up like this one is. All right, so I put that 2x6 there. That way, if I need a little extra support, I can have that extra support. And this gap right here, this is not really structural. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a metal plate there to get those two together. I really wanted the 2x6s to go all the way out here, because I want to make sure that the roof extends out at least 6 inches off the sides. So today what I'm going to do is I'm going to be finishing the roof, and then I'm going to be supporting and bracketing everything else that needs to be bracketed up. And here's what the other sides look like. But anyways, you can see that the floor here, I've got it lifted up. That's because I wanted to get it as level as I could from one side to another. And what will happen is when Chief gets over here and he starts filling in my yard with my rock, because we're going to put like 4 inches of decorative rock on top of everything. That way the water can drain really easy and you don't have any puddles. I'm going to have him fill all of this in and fill in parts of inside of the greenhouse as well. So that's why that's lifted up. But as you can see also, I did the same thing in the middle of the tent or the greenhouse as I did in the front. I don't think I showed you that. So in the middle doors, I just went ahead and did the same thing that I did in the front with the middle doors. That way, if we want to have some breeze going there, we can open that up if it's getting too hot. And if not, we can just close it up. And you can see I just used a piece of leftover PVC pipe that I had laying around. So that's what it's looking like, ladies and gentlemen. Like I said, I always get the comments, right? I am not a professional, but I have a good feeling that that's going to hold up pretty well. And I still do have a little more reinforcement to do. Now, some people may say, why didn't you just buy a new one? Well, I've looked into the prices of some greenhouses and they're pretty expensive. And for something this size, probably be a couple $1,000s really. Because I've seen some that were like small, that were like 8 feet wide or 8 feet long by like 4 feet wide, that were like $600. And right now, in wood and plastic, I've got about $350. Right? I've got about 350, yeah, something like that. It'll maybe be like $400, $450 after everything is said and done. And for this right here, this is going to do exactly what I needed to do, which is to hold heat and keep snow from the inside in the winter with the roof from caving in, of course. So I figured that'd be better for me to do. It's a lot cheaper to do it. Plus, I do enjoy coming out here and doing a little bit of work, doing this kind of stuff that doesn't have to look pretty. It just has to do the job, right? Having said that, thank you very much for joining in, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you got something out of this. If anything, a little bit of entertainment. And I just felt like hanging out with you today. I wasn't going to do a video today, but I just felt like hanging out with you guys for a little bit and talking about current events. So hope you got something out of this. If I failed to mention how we can prepare for all of these things, ladies and gentlemen, it's just preparing. If you notice, everything that's happening right now around the world with everything that I talked about during this video are things that just regular preparedness can take care of. So for example, what happens if the bank goes down? Well, one of the things that we do to prepare is to make sure we have a little bit of funds outside of the system, right? Or enough to get you through a tough time, through a crisis, whatever amount of time that may be for you. What happens if the banks close down and you don't have any money out of the system? Well, you have your food, you have your fuel, you have your water, you have all of those things as backup, right? So what happens if we have a food shortage crisis? Again, just basic preparedness. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. Of course, if you can afford to get the things that are more expensive, by all means, because I've found that getting those things that are pricier, it just makes your life a little bit easier, right? If you buy prepackaged food already, what are you doing? You're trading the money that you're paying for that food for the food and for the people that packaged it for you so that you yourself don't have to go out there and buy the food and then package it yourself. All you're doing is paying for convenience, really, right? When you get the pricier items. But just being prepared will take care of a lot of this. There are certain things that are out of our hands, and those things I worry about not. Why? Because they're out of our control. But those things that are in your control, that you can do something about now, you should be doing something about that now, before it happens, right? Don't be one day late to the party, because when you get there, everything is going to be gone. Having said that, have a great day. I hope you have a good week ahead. Remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. I'm Alaska Prepper. I'm out. God bless you.